Hi, I'm Sean Smith. This is Sean Smith Photos, where I edit street photography and occasional travel photos in On1 Photo Raw. So I went out for my weekly photo walk yesterday. It wasn't particularly prolific, but I did get a couple of shots, and this is one of the shots that I processed, and I ended up being happier with it than I anticipated. And as you can guess from the title, it's due to cropping. But I also used no noise and Tack Sharp AI to clean it up. If we take a quick look at the info section here, we can see that it was shot at ISO 6400, and I had the exposure compensation dial set to -1. I don't know why. Probably for a previous shot, and I forgot to turn it back. In any case, I turned this shot into 3 different shots, which I shared on Instagram and Vero, and I'll show you those now. So this is the original shot where I applied one of my presets that I created. I've created 2 or 3 presets for my street photography. And you can see it's still pretty dark. And if we zoom in, it's really noisy and a little bit out of focus. I then edited it further and I brightened it up, and I applied no noise and Tack Sharp AI. And while it's not perfectly in focus, it's much better. It's not noisy and it's bright. And at this point, I was kind of satisfied with it. And then I remembered some advice that I've gotten from this Facebook group that once a week they have a 4-hour window where you can submit a photo for critique. And I've done that 4, maybe 5 times now. And each time, part of the critique was crop closer. So I took that in mind and I cropped it closer. And now this is a much better shot. It's more intimate. We can see the eye contact, and I'm going to be sharing this as all 3 so we can see like the full context, the zoomed in a little bit, and then the super tight crop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to replicate the edits I've already done. Let's get to it. And we can see here, this is the original, and I created a version, and it's time to get editing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move over to noise and sharpening. And when I originally did it, I tested with no noise first, and then I could see the focus was off, so I hit Tack Sharp or both. And hit both, and we'll wait a second. You can see progress down here. And now the noise is all gone. And if we move this like that, it's really, really good. And I know that I made some adjustments here, and I moved the micro sharpening up a little bit because the face is still not as sharp as I wanted. So I had moved that up to 167. We'll get pretty close. 163 is close enough, right? So I did that, and then I put enhanced detail at 14. And to me, this made it sufficiently sharp and reduced the noise so that when I view the shot at the fit, everything looks good. And when I zoom into 100, her face is good and it's crisp. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. And at this point, we're going to hit apply. So I don't often use Tack Sharp or no noise, but when I do, I'm always really, really, really happy with it. Most of my shots are outside in daylight, so I typically don't have a lot of noise, and if they're not in focus, well, I usually toss them away. But in this case, I had been a little frustrated by a really poor day of a street walk. So let's move into tone and color. And here, I cycle through all of these, but I kept it on On1 standard, and then I hit AI match. And this is pretty good here. What did I end up with? I ended up with the 1.19, minus 12, minus 29. Oh, what was minus 29? Minus 29 was the shadows. So I pulled up on the shadows a little bit here. So we'll get that really close. And midtones were minus 12. And then I had whites at +4 and blacks at -3. So I pulled back on the blacks a little bit. And we can see what we have here. And wait for this mouse thing to disappear. And also did something on the saturation. It was -6. And then I had +15 for the vibrance. So we'll just get that really close. Not exactly the same, but there we go. Now, I do have a preset that I like to do for my street photography where I start off, and I've got a couple of things already done on it. So we're going to open up the presets tab here. And what I did there is I hit tab twice. But what I should have done is hit Control and left arrow, and it would reveal the presets bar. And this one here is what I typically use. So I'll let this apply. And we'll see what happens. And there we go. So we can see that I did the order opposite of what I originally did because my changes to saturation and vibrance have disappeared. So I'm going to reapply what I had done previously. And we'll put this at close to 15, and saturation was at -6. Not that it's terribly going to affect this part. Oops. And then we'll check the settings here, and we had exposure -12. Highlights was +4. Oh, it didn't change anything here. Yeah, okay, so this is all good. And then my preset has a subtle vignette, but I don't always use it. And in this case, I don't want it because it just doesn't make sense to have a vignette indoors like this. And then we have our dynamic contrast, and when I apply this I will turn it on and off, and in this case the difference is very subtle and I'm happy with that, so I'm going to leave it. But sometimes, you know, I might move the small up or down, or I might adjust the opacity and make it stronger. And then I'm going to take a look at the black and white. And what I typically do here is I might choose a different one of these presets, but I'm not going to do that. Or I might adjust some of the colors, and I will typically do that by turning it off and looking for a color that I want to make brighter or darker. In this case, it might be the jacket or the jeans or maybe this poster. But for this photo, I'm not going to do that. And then I will open up the tone, and I might increase the brightness. I might pull back on the blacks, make them a little darker, increase the shadows a little bit. So I don't just apply the preset. I apply the preset to get to a base development, and then I adjust it for each individual shot. So I got here, and I'm kind of happy with how it looks, and I decide I need to crop in because it's a little far. So I hit C for crop, and what I've been doing lately is keeping most of my crops at 4:5, but I will sometimes use 2:3 or the inverted 3:2, 5:4. And what I wanted to do is crop out this wall. So I just pulled in nice and tight here, and I pulled up a little bit like this, and I'm kind of eyeballing it based on what I remember, that I had put the subject roughly in the center. Not always the best place, but in this case I think it works. Yeah, I'm going to go like this. So this would be my first crop, and that looks a lot better. But then, as I said at the beginning of the video, I remembered, oh, crop tighter, because this brings in intimacy and really puts the focus on the subject. So in this case, I'll hit the C again, and I will crop in nice and tight, and I use the rule of thirds and put the crosshairs on her face, and boom, a much better shot than the full width one. And we used a preset, made some adjustments to it, and additionally we used no noise plus Tack Sharp AI to clean up a very high ISO image that was slightly out of focus. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.